Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you Game 2 in a series between WhiteRa versus TLO. Game 2 taking place here on Shattered Temple, and we'll see what TLO tries to do after losing Game 1 in this series to WhiteRa. WhiteRa opening up with a pretty standard 1-gate expand, able to then translate it into a 6-gate 6-gate pressure, able to fend off a potential bunker destruction on his own nexus, and then fight back and get his way into this game. You can see TLO at the 12 o'clock location, as I mentioned earlier, I believe I mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, WhiteRa sitting here at the 3 o'clock locations. This will be close by air spawns, and I'm curious as to how everything will go down in this particular matchup. WhiteRa currently getting up that pylon here. I believe he will be chrono boosting out as many probes as possible, perhaps going for a 13 gateway. Meanwhile, we should be seeing a depot being placed down by not a depot, a barracks being placed down by TLO in just a moment. Perhaps down over here, and then start training up that marine. We should perhaps see a refinery as well. TLO has been pretty much using a very standard build, getting up a barracks, training up 2 marines, adding on a tech lab, pulling SCVs off his gas, leaving 1, and then training up a marauder to deal with any potential early zealot stalker harassment while expanding right behind it. The probe will be making its way off to the north at the 12 o'clock location. It will try to come up this ramp, and it will spot this one barracks in just a moment. You can see the probe now coming around the corner. It will be able to spot this right there, and now the SCV may be in a little bit of trouble. A fresh SCV gonna come over to try to lend in a hand, and will be able to deal some damage to this one SCV. This one probe, as the probe now wanders around. Upgrading to an orbital command already underway. We are going to be getting up that second pylon, and now in comes that cybernetics core, waiting for the additional 50 or the additional minerals in order to train up that zealot, and most likely that zealot will be straight rallied into this Zelnaga tower there. Currently, you see one SCV mining off of this refinery here. We should be adding on a tech lab in just a moment, and that tech lab, as that SCV continues to do a little bit more research, a probe was taken down, so the scouting probe was destroyed. So we are going to see perhaps that tech lab being added on, and then a marauder right behind it. TLO mining with very minimal gas in order to be able to build that command center to move on into the mid game. You can see a gateway currently chrono boosting, or being chrono boosted. The gateway tech currently being chrono boosted off of that cybernetics core. A stalker is in position, as well as an SCV gonna try to walk up that ramp and simply get just manhandled by that zealot. The zealot sitting on the ramp, able to push back this one particular unit, as TLO once again going into an expansion attempt. So we'll see how that works out for him this time. As WhiteRa, he hasn't really shown anything as of yet. This is a 1 racks into a 2 racks build. We should be getting up a 3rd barracks as well. Perhaps a tech lab and a reactor could be added to kind of round out the rest of this group. There are currently 2 SCVs on gas right now, so still not very many at all, as a Reaper finally being added to this group. 2 Marines, 1 Marauder, and a Reaper will be trying to do a little bit of pressure, but with that stalker on the high ground and some zealots as well, the zealots should be able to absorb a lot of that damage before, as that stalker able to get off some pretty free shots there. We are going to get a probe now making its way down to do a bit of scouting. This is the Marauder 2 Marine, as we mentioned earlier, and now in comes a Reaper from the backside of the base, and you can now see a second and a third gateway currently being built. The zealots now being forced to run back over here, as the stalker going to deal with this one Reaper. The Reaper down to 10 hit points and able to escape, but ever so barely. Things definitely not looking good for TLO at this point. WhiteRa now going into his patented robotics facility warp prism play, and off of these 3 gateways, and this 3 gateways, 3 zealots, and a stalker, he will be able to pick up those units, drop them off on the far side, and then warp in some additional units as well. And this will catch TLO completely off guard, as you now see TLO attempting to take his natural expansion here. There's the warp prism. We are only 6 minutes into this game, as now WhiteRa gonna come in and now start dropping those zealots and those stalkers. Here you go, warping in another 3 zealots right behind it, and getting in and putting in a lot of pressure. TLO being forced to not mine at this point, as the orbital command now taking a fair amount of damage. SCVs are desperately trying to run back into this position here. There is one warp prism as the Zealots are trying to engage. The SCVs were able to mineral path and perhaps get a decent surround here. The Zealots are going after the Marauders. More units now being warped in from back home, as what the Zealots are now continuing to give chase. The refinery has been destroyed, and now an army of 9 Zealots straight inside this base, still dealing so much damage. The Marauders attempting to kite those Zealots. These 2 Zealots will get destroyed, but there is still an army of Zealots, and now adding in some sentries and stalkers as well. So this is looking to be a very, very strong, effective effect there, as now the lower hit point units are being picked up and dropped. Beautiful micro by WhiteRa, and now what TLO says, good game. So very, very interesting play by WhiteRa, using that warp prism as like almost as you would see Zeppelin play in Warcraft 3, picking up the unit in that warp prism and then dropping them back down, knowing that the TLO or Marauders of TLO cannot hit air. And WhiteRa taking game 2 in this series as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.